Okay, so ready for a deep dive. Today, we're tackling decolonization. But, and this is where it gets interesting, we're not talking about tearing down empires or anything like that.
No, no, not at all.
This is about something way more, I don't know, personal, like reclaiming your own, I guess you could call it your civilizational inheritance.
It's a powerful idea.
Yeah,
And the text we're looking at today really dives into this.
it really
It
did.
calls this internal framework, this inheritance, the Dhārmika operating system.
Dhārmika operating system. It even mentions a Dhārmika ontology, epistemology, and teleology.
Right, or OET for short.
OET, yeah. I feel like we should be wearing tweed jackets and smoking pipes, like we're about to crack open some ancient philosophical text.
Well, it might sound a bit intimidating at first, all those big words.
Yeah.
But it's actually a pretty intuitive concept once you get into it.
Okay.
Imagine, like, your computer's operating system, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's what determines how your computer interacts with the world.
Right, all the software that makes it work.
Exactly.
Right.
So this Dhārmika OET, it's kind of like swapping out your current operating system for one that's, rooted in ancient Indian thought.
Okay.
It gives you a framework for understanding, like reality, knowledge, purpose, all those big questions.
So less of a software update, more like a worldview upgrade.
Exactly. And you know what the text says is a key part of this Dhārmika system? Sanskrit.
Sanskrit, like the language.
Well, yeah, but not just as a spoken language. More like a framework for thinking, a way of seeing and organizing reality,
It calls Sanskrit the root code. I love that root code of this system.
I know, it's a great way to put it, right?
It is. It's saying that the structure of Sanskrit itself, like how the words are formed and all relate to each other, that shapes how we understand the world.
It's true. Think about it, like the word dharma, you know that word, right?
Of course, yeah.
Its root, the dhatu, in Sanskrit is do. And do means to uphold, to sustain. So when you understand that, dharma becomes about way more than just duty or righteousness or whatever.
Right.
It becomes about acting in a way that sustains us, us and everything around us.
Wow, that's a much richer way of looking at it.
Right. And the text talks about using these dhatu, these root verbs, and these sūtras, those little aphorisms, as tools.
Tools for what?
For decoding this whole ancient way of thinking.
Right.
Like the dhatu unlock the essence of a word, how it connects to other ideas.
I see.
And the sūtras, they're like those little signposts, those pithy sayings packed with wisdom, pointing you towards a deeper understanding.
So like by getting these elements, we can start to see things through this Dhārmika lens, even if we're not like fluent in Sanskrit.
Exactly. It's like learning a new language, but instead of words, you're deciphering concepts, connections.
Wow. And the text argues that if we do this, we can re-examine like everything, even the most basic concepts.
Everything.
Sacred, technology, even the idea of progress, we can see them in a whole new light.
It's about questioning your assumptions, For example, we usually think progress means more technology, right?
Right. Faster phones, fancier cars, all that.
But does that actually lead to a better world? Is that what we really want?
Good point. It makes you rethink what progress even means.
Exactly. And this is where the text brings up this idea of synaptic reconnection.
Synaptic reconnection, that sounds intense.
It's a powerful image. It's about consciously trying to bridge this gap between, like, our modern minds and the wisdom that's, embedded in our civilizational heritage.
So like rewiring our brains almost. Reconnecting with a way of thinking we might not even know we've lost.
You got it. Understanding how these ancient thinkers saw the world, engaging with their ideas on consciousness, existence, the whole shebang.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see it now.
All come together, really.
It does. And speaking of things coming together, the text goes on to propose this whole 4-layer schema, right? Like a mental map for understanding reality through this Dhārmika lens.
Exactly. And in this section, it dives into detail on 2 of these layers. The first is Artava. And Artava is all about understanding reality in relation to Isa, which often gets translated as natural order or cosmic rhythm.
So how everything exists in harmony with the, what did you call it? The
Ita, yeah. Like the natural flow of the universe.
Got it. Okay, so what's the second layer then?
That's Itma. It's a more personal view. Understanding reality from your own individual experience, your consciousness, how all that shapes your perception of the world.
So Artava is like the big picture, and Atmi is like zooming in on our experience within that bigger picture.
Exactly. 2 sides of the same coin. two ways of understanding our place in the universe.
This is fascinating stuff, but I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface here, aren't we?
Oh, we're just getting started. We've got a lot more to unpack. And this is where things get really interesting, right? Because it's not just about observing these two layers of reality, Artava and Anthya. The text hints at something called sūtras and how they connect to action.
Okay, sūtras. I'm going to need some help with this one.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, right? But remember those sutras we were talking about before? Those little aphorisms packed with wisdom.
Yeah, like signposts.
Right, exactly. So sūtras are like clusters of these sutras forming these principles that can be either, conceptual or operational.
So like, I don't know, a blueprint versus actually building something. One's the theory, the other's putting it into practice.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And get this, the text is saying that Indian civilization itself operates on these underlying cosmic principles, these sūtras.
What's a sūtras?
Yeah. So to like reconnect with that civilizational consciousness, we need our own set of you ready for this sūtras.
Got this sūtras. Okay, I think I'm getting lost in all the Sanskrit. What are Katha sūtras? Like, can you give me an example?
Yeah, so basically these are like our own operational principles, right?
Okay.
They're the principles that guide our actions in the world.
Okay, so how do we, like, make these Katha sūtras?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
But the text gives us some clues.
Okay.
It dives into some specific sutras that can kind of act like design principles.
Design principles, okay.
For building this framework, right, like within ourselves.
Okay.
And what's really fascinating is how they draw these parallels between, like, individual consciousness and then the collective consciousness of a whole civilization.
Okay, now you're blowing my mind. Give me an example. I got to hear this.
Okay, so one sutra compares our memory, right, like our own personal memories,
Yeah.
to a civilization's history, its itihasa.
Okay.
So it's suggesting that just like our memories shape who we are as individuals, a civilization's history shapes its identity, like it's the collective memory of a culture.
So you start to wonder how much of who we are is shaped by, like, how we remember the past, or misremember it, maybe, both individually and as a whole society.
Right, like what stories do we tell ourselves about where we come from, and what does that say about who we are now? It's deep stuff, and the text takes it even further. It says that by consciously engaging with our history, right, by really understanding the stories, the lessons, the good, the bad of those who came before us, we can actually yoke ourselves back to that duta, that natural order.
Yoke ourselves back.
It's a powerful image, right? Like we're hitching ourselves to that cosmic rhythm.
So it's not about, like, blindly following tradition, but more about actively learning from it.
Right. Understanding its wisdom and then letting that wisdom inform our actions today.
I like that. So what's the next sutra?
So the next one talks about this idea of savdharma, which basically means like our own personal duty.
Okay, Savadharma, got it.
And how that connects to the natural order. Right?
Yeah.
It says that when a civilization is really in sync with the eta, it achieves this state of like complete coherence.
Complete coherence. What does that even mean?
It's like everything's working together, it's functioning at its highest potential.
So like individual actions and what do you call it? Collective well-being. They're all in alignment.
Exactly. Society as a whole is vibing with that natural rhythm of the universe, It's like profound interconnectedness and fulfillment.
Wow, that sounds pretty amazing, especially in a world that, let's be honest, often feels the opposite of coherent.
Right. It makes you wonder, like, could we actually get there? Could we tap into that kind of wisdom today?
It's a big question, but I like where your head's at. So we've got Artava and Atya, these two layers of reality.
Right. The big picture and the personal view.
Exactly. And now the text is going even deeper into each one, right? Like giving us specific categories to help us actually use this Dhārmika lens.
You got it.
Okay, so let's talk categories. What kinds of things fall under Artava, that realm of natural order?
So it starts with Uta itself, right?
Yeah.
That encompasses like everything that exists outside of us, humans.
Okay.
The cosmos, the laws of nature, all that good stuff.
Just like gravity, the tides, the changing seasons, it's all Uta.
Exactly. It's that fundamental fabric of existence.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's next?
Next, we have Kota. That includes everything that's created by, living beings. So that includes us.
Okay, from a simple mud hut to like the internet, it's all Kata.
It's a pretty broad category.
Yeah, okay.
But it speaks to our power to shape and influence the world around us.
Yeah.
And it gets even more nuanced from there.
Okay, how so?
The text breaks Keta down even further. There's Duda, which refers to things that emerge from like humanity specifically.
Okay, so culture, traditions, art, music, all that falls under Dutta.
You get it. It's like the imprint we leave on the world, and then there's
Uh,
Gutha.
wait, isn't that like ghee, the clarified butter?
Your Sanskrit. And it's actually a really brilliant metaphor. See, ghee is like the purest essence of butter, right?
Yeah, it's like super clarified.
Exactly. So
What?
Gutha in this context represents like the best of humanity.
The best of humanity. Like what?
Think about it. Our art, our innovations, the refined output of our collective genius.
Oh, I see, I see. Not just what we create, but the quality, the essence of it.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget about leadership and governance, right? That's where Buddha comes in.
Puta.
Yeah.
So everything related to how we organize ourselves as a society.
Exactly. Education, systems of justice, all those things that shape how we coexist.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then we have a category that, feels particularly relevant these days. Mita.
Mita.
Okay, that one sounds a little ominous.
Yeah, and for good reason. Mita refers to anything that can lead to death or destruction, both on a personal level and on a societal level.
So like war, famine, pandemics.
Exactly. And also, things like environmental destruction, social unrest, even just like the potential for technology to be used for harm.
It's like a reminder that our creations, the things we build, they can have unintended consequences.
For sure. And then finally, we have this category. It's called Anta, or sometimes Nutta. This one's a bit of a head scratcher.
Okay, Anta, what's that all about? It's kind of like the everything else category. It encompasses the things that defy easy categorization, the mysterious, the ambiguous, the stuff we just don't fully understand yet.
Oh, okay. The unknown unknowns.
Exactly. Like the edges of our understanding, the places where our current models break down.
That's actually kind of exciting, though, isn't it?
It is. It leaves room for mystery, for the possibility of discovering something totally new.
So we've explored Ottava, the view from above, but what about Atamya, that internal landscape? What categories help us understand that part of the equation?
That's where we're headed next.
Okay, so Artava, that was the cosmic view, right? The whole tapestry.
A big picture.
But Atmiya, that's like zooming in on the individual threads, yeah. Our own personal experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like with Artava, Atmiya has its own categories, right?
Yeah.
Ways of understanding that inner world.
I'm all about categories. Lay it on me.
All right, so first up, we've got smutta. Our thoughts, feelings, memories, those little things floating around in our heads.
Yeah, like what do they call it? The stream of consciousness.
Exactly. All those impressions, that's the raw material, right?
The stuff our inner world is built from. Okay, that makes sense.
And building on that, we've got uka, the things we create from those experiences. So, our art, our expressions, how we externalize all that inner stuff.
So smutta is like the paint, and uka is the painting itself.
I like it. A perfect analogy.
Gotta love a good analogy.
Right. It's taking those internal experiences and putting them out into the world.
Okay, that makes sense. What's next?
So then we have, and this one's interesting, Dutta. Remember Dutta from before? Those were the collective traits, traditions, all that.
Right, like the cultural inheritance stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But Dutta zeroes in on the individual.
Yeah.
It's your skills, your talents, even, your little quirks.
So like our unique way of being in the world.
Exactly. Recognizing that we each interact with that Dutta, that natural order, in our own way.
Okay, I like that. Celebrating those differences.
Exactly. And, just like Artava had its best of category with Guka, remember?
Biggie.
Yes. Well, Dutta has Tud. And this refers to, like, the refined aspects of ourselves.
Refined how?
Personal growth, self-reflection. It's that best version of ourselves, the
Right.
self we're cultivating, consciously.
It's like becoming who we're meant to be.
Exactly. And this takes effort,
Yeah.
right? It's an ongoing process. And then, of course, just like there are external threats, those Vigians we talked about.
Right, the ominous one.
Yeah, well, Apnea has its internal challenges too. And that's where we get Sutta.
Sutta. Okay. And those are,
Those are the things that can lead us astray, internally.
so like bad habits, negative thought patterns, that kind of
You
thing.
got it. Addictions, attachments, all those things that can, tempt us off our path.
Yeah, we all have those. It's like that voice that tells you to have another slice of cake when you know you shouldn't.
Exactly. We're constantly battling those internal Sutta. And finally, there's Vita. This one's pretty straightforward.
Okay, hit me.
Vita is basically our daily activities, our routines, the things we do day in and day out.
Okay, so like brushing our teeth, going to work, all that.
Exactly. But here's the thing. The text draws this really interesting connection between just going through the motions, those mindless routines, and it calls it a kind of death of the self.
Wow, death of the self. That's a bit intense.
Right. But it's a powerful image. It's like a reminder to be present,
Yeah.
to make sure our actions are aligned with what we actually value.
Not just going through the motions.
Exactly. So we've got this whole schema, this way of understanding reality, but it's not just an intellectual exercise, right?
Right. It's about actually living it, right, putting it into practice.
You got it. And that's where those sūtras, those principles we were talking about, they come in.
Okay, yeah. Remind me about those again.
So one of the big ones was about memory.
Right. Right. How a civilization's history is like its collective memory.
And just like we use our memories to learn and grow, civilizations can use their history that way too. It's about learning from the past to make better choices now.
So not just dwelling on the past, but using it as a guide.
Exactly. And then there's that other sutra about Svadharma, that personal duty.
Right, right. And how it connects to the natural order.
It's like when we're living in alignment with our Svadharma, when we're fulfilling our unique purpose, it creates this ripple effect of harmony.
It's like we're all connected, right? Each playing our part in this grand symphony of existence.
Beautifully put. And that brings us to that final sutra, the one about complete coherence.
That we can achieve a state of total harmony, both individually and as a society.
Exactly. Imagine a world where everyone's actions are aligned with the well-being of the whole, where we're all in sync with that cosmic rhythm.
It's a beautiful vision, but I have to admit, it feels a bit, I don't know, utopian, given the state of things today.
It's definitely a tall order.
Yeah.
But even just striving for that kind of coherence, it can make a difference. The first step is awareness, right? Understanding these principles, this whole Dhārmika worldview, and then, just seeing what happens when we start to view the world through that lens.
So it's not about, like, throwing out everything we know and going back to living in huts or something.
No, not at all. It's about taking these ancient ideas seriously.
Yeah, remembering that we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. That we're part of this lineage, this tradition that goes back centuries.
And that maybe, just maybe, those who came before us had something figured out that we've forgotten.
It's about bridging that gap,
Yeah.
Between ancient wisdom and modern challenges.
And who knows, maybe in doing so, we might just find our way back to that sense of harmony, that interconnectedness that we've been talking about.
It's a journey worth taking, that's for sure.
I couldn't agree more. And on that note, we come to the end of our deep dive into decolonization and the Dhārmika operating system. I hope you found this exploration as fascinating as we did.
Absolutely, and we hope it inspires you to keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.